Hi, welcome to Ready to Teach. It's that time of year again where teachers are now starting to think about how they want their classroom set up and whatnot. So I'm here to help middle school, high school teachers who see hundreds of kids a day on how to get your classroom set up. Number one, I would like to say that I am not an expert. I did have help with this. My elementary school, my first year, 5 years ago, my elementary school friend came in and taught me how to do borders. And so I am paying it forward and teaching you all with this tutorial. This series is going to be something new for me, but also just a beginning because I am moving states. So new state, new school, new job, new coworkers, new kids that I don't know. I won't have had their siblings. You know, now that I've been teaching 5 years, I've had the pleasure of having siblings, and I don't mean that sarcastically. Anyway, but I've had the genuine pleasure of having siblings, and it's always been great. And now I'm kind of starting over. And so in this series, I'm going to go over how to transfer your credential and what it's like from teaching in one state to teaching in a whole other state. So that is what we're doing, and we let the tutorial begin. It helps to have a stapler that obviously opens a staple puller, and of course your length of paper. So you have your, also if you're short like me, then you need one of these too. Very helpful. So you have your wall here, and it's empty. So what you want to do is make sure you have the right length. And then I'm going to show you how I put this up. All right, so as you can see, I've already put up paper, and I'm just going to take you through my last paper and then when I put up the borders. My paper is not nice and neat. It did bug me, but the kids didn't notice. They didn't comment. I know some people who might be more artistically inclined than me might get annoyed by it, but that's just how the paper was at our school. So I line up my orange and I measure it out with the green. I do like to overlap just a tad bit. It's good to overlap. I decided that I would put the uneven sides down. Maybe I could fix it with the border. So I'm putting my straight edged side up near the top of the roof of the classroom and measuring it out again. It looks slightly crooked in the video because my camera was crooked and I didn't notice it until I started looking at it, so forgive me for that. This is easier obviously with 2 people, but as you know, teachers, sometimes we don't have that 2-person team. My first year, I was lucky enough to have a friend help me. She's the one who taught me how to do borders. And shout out to Nicole, thank you. She's an elementary school friend, and then she also teaches elementary school, so she's great with borders. So obviously my first year working with her, my borders were way better. And then I moved classrooms, so I had to do that on my own. And then this is my 3rd classroom that I've been in. So now I align it and I staple the bottom. I also like to staple just bits in between because the kids like to pull on the paper, and I do warn them, do not pull on this paper. It took me a long time to put it up. So once it's how I like it, I check it over. Yep, I'm happy. So now that I am content with my paper, I'm happy with it, how it looks, I am going to start putting up my borders. I do start off with my long pieces that I have, but I do have short pieces just to fill in the gaps. So you do want to keep your long pieces and as well as your short pieces, because sometimes the wall, it's not measured out perfectly, so you just want to have different sizes ready. That's just a tip. I got these borders from the teacher store, like the only teacher store, and I've used them for 5 years now. I was in one classroom for 1 year, another classroom for like 3 years, and then this classroom was my 5th year. And so I have a bunch of different sizes, but I've kept the border paper, and I bought a ton. I don't remember how much I bought, but it had to have been at least 5 packets of 10, because I knew I am not the super creative type. I'm gonna keep this theme for as long as I can until I can't find the borders anymore. And the new classroom that I'm gonna be in this year, I am using the same theme, or at least the same borders if I can. So hopefully they have paper at my new school, because it's a pain to have to buy your own paper. So now I don't worry too much about the edges of the paper. I don't care if it's perfect, because the borders will cover everything. You just have to align it correctly. So here I am aligning everything correctly. Now, if this is your first year, I would recommend to get a friend or somebody to help you kind of tell if it's aligned correctly. But once you're a pro, like me, just kidding, it's a little bit easier, and you just staple. Honestly, the 5th year, you kind of, as a middle school teacher, I don't know, I care about how my classroom looks, hence why I'm taking this time to put everything up, but I'm not overly concerned. It took me like 3 days my first year teaching to figure everything out and how I wanted everything. And then this year, this 5th year, I just did it pretty quickly. I was in and out in a day. I knew how I wanted everything. I wasn't overly concerned, as you can tell with the wrinkled paper. So next up is I'm aligning everything, and I will do a close-up on how I align the border, because borders, this one at least has a pattern, and so it does need to be aligned accordingly. I don't know if the kids would notice, but I would know. So I care enough to align it correctly. I'm gonna just speed this up, because pretty much it's just me stapling the borders. I'm now going to show you how I do line up the borders and get them kind of equal. Now for my sides, I care about, because people look at the sides a lot more than they look at the top. In middle school, you don't really have too many tall kids, and I'm not very tall, so I'm not going to notice the top as much as I'm going to notice the sides. So you just want to align up the pattern as much as possible if you have a pattern. As you can see, that's what I'm doing. Let's try to zoom in. Staple, got to remove those staples. And so I'm aligning it. I want it to overlap the top, and then I stapled it. Looks pretty good. Okay, here I go, aligning again. So all I'm doing is matching up the pattern and staple. Now we're at the bottom. So as you can see, haven't really cared too much about the bottom till now. I'm gonna even it up by just cutting. I try to make it as even as possible because the borders are going to be going here, so I don't want it to be too off. So this is a great time to kind of even up your border. So if your paper, say you've measured too long or whatever, you don't have to stress out because you can always cut it once you get to the bottom. This might not be the best way, but I like to put my border just so that like one paper at a time, so that I can keep everything aligned, because sometimes when you're cutting you might waver. So I like to kind of staple everything exactly how I know it's gonna go. And I try and do at least 3 staples, so one at the beginning of the border, one in the middle, and then one at the end. I'm not going to staple down exactly at the end because I've got to cut everything. So as you notice, I didn't staple right at the edge. I'm going to cut now the green paper and apply the border. So it's very kind of helpful to do it this way. That way the borders are all even, the paper's even. I don't have to go back and take off. So I just tuck the green under, and then I'm going to put in the new border, staple, and continue this throughout the bottom half of the paper. Here's a long shot of how it all looks. It's not exactly smooth, but that's just how the colors I wanted were on our paper roll, and so it's fine. It lasted the whole year. Here's the bottom borders. As you can tell, you can't even really see where I use the long pieces versus the short pieces, and everything is nice and even at the bottom. So it started off uneven and now it's even. This is my other wall. I had a friend help me do my icons, my images, my numbers, and then I put posters up. I switch this out every time we do a new unit. I had a friend, first unit help me do my icons, my images, my numbers, and then I put posters up. I switch this out every time we do a new unit. First unit is scientific method, since it's the beginning of the year. I'm gonna zoom out here so you can see everything. The Science in My World is where I put up their student work and showcase that. And then the scientific method is more like a bulletin board where I switch it out every unit.